it doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. We can't afford 4 more years of this.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
This is Kamala Harris, the Democrat presidential nominee, and until recently, the most unpopular vice president in United States history.
Interesting news. Recent focus groups conducted by the super PAC Republican voters against Trump found that swing voters don't like Harris. And focus groups conducted by the Democratic National Committee also found Harris rubs some people the wrong way. So, Jonah, how big a drag is Kamala Harris on the ticket?
I think she's a pretty big drag. I think she was arguably Biden's worst political decision of his presidency to pick her in the first place.
It's not just focus groups that are down on Harris right now. In a recent poll, national poll, 40% approved of the vice president's job performance, while 55% disapproved.
But now, with less than 6 weeks to go before the election, Kamala Harris has miraculously turned those numbers around.
The View, the overall perception of Kamala Harris. Remember, before she got in the race, a lot of talk that, her numbers didn't look better than Biden's. She was 32 positive, 50 negative before getting in this race. And now this is what you see. I mean, we were seeing numbers like this for years for Kamala Harris.
And we've seen low approval numbers for Kamala Harris even before she became vice president. And for good reason. Take, for example, this exchange during Kamala's first Democrat presidential debate.
And I will say also that in this campaign, we've also heard, and I'm going to now direct this at Vice President Biden, I do not believe you are a racist. But I also believe, and it's personal, and I was actually it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of 2 United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country. And it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing. And, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me.
But within minutes of that exchange, the Kamala Harris campaign started selling "That Little Girl Was Me" t-shirts. In other words, it was a pre-planned attack against Joe Biden. Kamala wanted to imply that Biden was a racist and even claimed that what he said was hurtful and personal. But of course, we all know now that it was all bullshit.
How do you go from being such a passionate opponent on such bedrock principles for you, and now you guys seem to be pals?
It was a debate. It was a debate.
So you don't mean it?
It was a debate. That the whole reason, literally, it was a debate. It was called a debate.
I understand.
Traveled to the debate. There were journalists there covering the debate, where there would be a debate of differences of opinion and issues.
Wow, can't wait for 8 years of that. So, what happened exactly? How did cackling Kamala go from being the most unpopular vice president in American history to become the leader of the Democrat Party? Well, according to Ari Melber at MSNBC, it's because she was finally allowed to be her true self.
Being the nominee and the party leader taking on Donald Trump is different from being a deferential, deliberately smaller, quieter role of understudy or vice president to the president. And by playing that role well, many experts say Harris had to dim her shine. And that's literally the term that some historians and strategists use. In political struggles, you never outshine the master. Always make those above you feel completely superior. In your desire to please and impress them, do not go too far in displaying your talents, or you might accomplish the opposite, inspiring fear and insecurity in them. Make your masters appear more brilliant than they are, and you will attain the heights of power.
So according to the laws of power, Kamala Harris, she wasn't allowed to show how amazingly talented she was, because otherwise she would have made her master, Joe Biden, look bad. Got it. But then Ari Melber made the following comparison.
And if it all sounds familiar, it is a tale and fable as old as time.
When I left you, I was but a learner. Now I am the master.
Wait, what he's saying is that Kamala Harris is Darth Vader, Lord of the Sith. But wait, there's more.
Always two there are. No more, no less. A master and an apprentice.
Now he's comparing Joe Biden to Emperor Palpatine, makes sense, and Kamala Harris to Darth Maul. Comparing Democrats to Star Wars villains. Well played, Ari Melber. Well played. Next, Joe Biden was hosting the leaders of Australia, India, and Japan in Delaware for some reason. White House Press Secretary and historical figure Karine Jean-Pierre told the press the very important reason for holding it there.
It is important to him inviting them to Wilmington, his home state, his home city, his home state, obviously Delaware. It was important for him to have these personal touches. It was important to him to do something that he hadn't done before. He's going to take them to his high school.
What?
Giving them opportunities to see his high school, right? Places where that he's very much connected to, that you all will see.
Joe Biden is treating world leaders like the college girlfriend you bring back to your hometown for the holidays. Want to see where I went to school? Wow, I remember it being so much bigger. Want to sign my yearbook? How embarrassing. But not as embarrassing as this unhinged moment.
So I want to thank you all for being here. And now, who am I introducing next? Who's next?
Holy crap. I do not know who's running the country, but it is not Joe Biden. Days later, Joe Biden spent a couple of days in New York City and forgot where the hell he was.
Welcome to Washington.
Bruh. Then, Joe Biden's handlers thought it would be a great idea for him to go on The View and let him talk about Kamala Harris. This turned out to be an in-kind contribution to the Trump campaign.
She is smart as hell, number one. She's tough. As vice president, there wasn't a single thing that I did that she couldn't do. And so I was able to delegate her responsibility on everything from foreign policy to domestic policy.
In other words, Joe Biden is admitting that all of his failures over the last 3.5 years also belong to Kamala Harris. One gets the feeling that he's so bitter about being forced to retire from politics that he's attempting to sabotage her campaign. Not that VP Kamala is doing herself any favors.
The American economy is the most powerful force for innovation and wealth creation in human history. We just need to move past the failed policies that we have proven don't work.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Anyway, despite being the Democrat nominee for 2 months, Kamala Harris has only had one solo sit-down interview with a major news organization. And a couple days ago, Stephanie Ruhle asked Kamala how she would pay for things like a $50,000 tax credit for small business owners or a $25,000 mortgage assistance down payment thing for first-time buyers.
If you can't raise corporate taxes, or if GOP takes control of the Senate, where do you get the money to do that? Do you still go forward with those plans and borrow?
Well, but we're going to have to raise corporate taxes, and we're going to have to make sure that the biggest corporations and billionaires pay their fair share. That's just it.
So the question was, what if you can't raise corporate taxes? And Kamala's answer was, we have to raise corporate taxes. Kamala Harris is not a serious person.
It's about paying their fair share. I am not mad at anyone for achieving success, but everyone should pay their fair share, and it is not right that the teachers and the firefighters that I meet every day across our country are paying a higher tax than the richest people in our country.
No, they don't. The median annual income for firefighters is $59,606. Their effective federal tax rate is 9.02%. The median pay for a high school teacher is $69,544. Their effective federal tax rate is 10.87%. And what about the top 1%? Well, according to an analysis of IRS data by the Tax Foundation, the top 1% of taxpayers paid a 25.9% average tax rate. And for the record, in 2021, the United States government brought in nearly $2.2 trillion in federal income tax revenue. The top 1% paid more than $1 trillion in federal income taxes. That's 45.8% of all federal income tax collected. Sounds like they're already paying their fair share, but whatever. But what about Stephanie Ruhle? Was she annoyed that Kamala couldn't/wouldn't answer her questions?
She doesn't answer the question around if the GOP is controlling the Senate, if she can't raise corporate taxes, where is she going to get the money from? To expand the child tax credit and do all the things she wants to do. And she says, we just have to do it.
She actually was perfectly reasonable. And listen, there's some things she's not giving you a direct answer on because she's a politician.
Gee, if only there was a journalist in the room who could have, maybe pushed back a little and asked Kamala a follow-up question. Oh well. Anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time, if there is next time.